So if you just think about the context of your business, any opportunities that you're leading and you're running, one of the most important things that you do every day is to kind of pitch your idea. Why is it important and why is it compelling? And then you need to actually take things from kind of a big picture story pitch into actually doing the product launch. So this morning we're very happy to have Amanda Rabideau, who is both the founder of Arch Collective and actually a very, very seasoned, business marketer, particularly in B2B. Right. And we also have Stephen Wong, who's actually my brother, and he is the CEO and founder of Rabideau, and he'll be talking much more.
Specifically nowadays in product marketing with clients like Airbnb and Google, Intel and Cisco, and food and beverage companies like Torani, which is an American brand, but it is very prevalent on school campuses, so that's why I bring that up. It's a syrups. What I will talk with you about today is how to launch a product. But I want to tell you a bit about my other background. I'm also the chairperson of the 1990 Institute. That's a nonprofit focused on AAPI education. So Aria said something which I thought was very resonant. She said, we have to restore trust. She was talking about negotiations. I'm thinking about trust in terms of Asians and Americans specifically, understanding that we often have common goals. And when we don't have common goals, they're not necessarily malicious.
Arch Collective is a marketing agency specifically focused on helping B2B tech companies with their marketing. So I serve as a fractional CMO, and I have a team, which I call the Collective. And actually this will be my nod to Stephen, who helped me name the company and actually brought up the term Collective, so kudos to him. The Collective is my network of freelance marketers and creatives that execute on the strategy. The thought process when I started it was, look, startup companies, and I'm sure many of you know this, you have a limited budget, even if you've just closed on a round of funding. So you want to make sure you're deploying that capital efficiently and effectively. And so if you've got the strategy, you don't want to pay a CMO to execute on the strategy. I joke, I'm like, that's a really expensive email if I'm writing your emails. And so that's where the team can come in and bring their expertise, execute on the strategy, and not cost as much money as it would if, let's say, we brought in a consultant that was just doing it on their own. By way of background, I spent the previous 5 years to starting Arch Collective at CoreLogic, which is one of the largest providers of real estate data and analytics. And to those who are in Australia, I think I saw in some of your backgrounds, CoreLogic acquired RP Data, which is a similar company and the largest provider of, or was the largest provider of real estate data and analytics in Australia. So a lot of my B2B tech clients end up being in the insurtech and the prop tech space. And I noticed, again, a lot of your backgrounds around sustainability and climate. And while I may be on the insurance side and under the insurtech guidance, so much of what's happening in the climate and the importance of sustainability is impacting my clients too. So we probably have some more commonality than we originally thought. But as Stephen said, I'm going to talk about some practical things around developing your messaging and the importance of telling a story around your business. And I'm a product marketer by background, and so as I evolved into a CMO, that's where my foundation was built. And so a lot of what I'm going to share, these are things I've been doing for 20 years. And in fact, I started Arch Collective 4 years ago. I've worked as a CMO or fractional CMO for dozens of companies now, had multiple clients. And so with that, I'm going to dive into my piece of it. Also to warn everyone, have your notebooks ready or your laptop, because mine's interactive and you're going to have to work. So hopefully everyone's cool with that. First, to start off with, has everyone here seen Steve Jobs' 2005 commencement speech to Stanford? Then if you've seen it, well, one, if you haven't, it's about 15 minutes long, and I highly recommend that you watch it. And the reason I bring it up, it's very simple. It is 3 stories. That's a speech. And this is one of, if not the most watched commencement speech in the history, in history, I should say. So while Steve Jobs, he invented a lot, he did not invent storytelling, but he recognized the power of storytelling when he went out there to pitch his products, to motivate his team, and to really drive that class of Silicon Valley garagepreneurs like Hewlett Packard and even, Jeff Bezos, maybe not in Silicon Valley, and Bill Gates, but those that just really rolled up their sleeves and built something simply. I am not here to talk about obsessive product design or minimalism. I do want to talk about how storytelling or the right message can actually change all of your businesses and the trajectory of it. This is where I want to make sure everyone's got something to write with or type with, got your coffee so you can pay attention. You know, as I alluded to in my intro, I've been creating stories and messages for a couple decades now. And so I really want to share as much as what I've learned in a short period of time. Steven's going to keep me honest on time, make sure I'm not going over. So you may see that I skip over some slides. So much about when you're in a startup and you're a founder and you're out there fundraising, it's like, oh, well, what's the product I'm selling? Like, how cool is my tech? And, you know, what are the numbers or the financials that I have? But the story and the messaging will actually help you with that. It'll help you attract the right customers and help turn away the wrong customers, which sometimes we don't think about that because we get into this, I just want more revenue. It'll help us improve the performance of the money that we are spending, which will in turn increase sales and hopefully accelerate your funding because you've got a compelling story out there. My first story that I want to share, which really helped me understand the power of a story, and this is where it says a little bit more about Arch Collective. So my very first startup was a dental orthodontic startup. We had a robotic technology that shortens the time you wear braces on your teeth. You know, first company out of college, I drank the orthodontic Kool-Aid. The company was Sure Smile. And so all my friends, I would tell them about it, and they were things like fashion and definitely nothing around orthodontics or tech. And they didn't really care what I had to say. I was in sales at the time, and I sat in on what we call here a treatment consultation, where the orthodontist looks at the kid's teeth and basically talks to the parent, usually about, you know, what kind of treatment they need. This little kid, I was in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He was not the cutest little kid, and he had some really challenging teeth, like lots of problems. By the way that we would define it. He was slumping in his chair and he looked really sad, and his mom started talking about how he was bullied at school because of the way he looked and his teeth in particular. And so the orthodontist is telling them about Sure Smile and how we can do this really quickly. And the mom was like, yes, I want to start as quickly as possible. The quicker we get his teeth fixed, the sooner this bullying will stop because it's painful for him and for our family and everything. And so I got back from my trip from Louisiana and I'm telling my friends, and for the first time ever, they listened to what I had to say about the company. And it was like, they don't give a shit about the technology, but when they heard the story about this kid who was gonna go from being bullied to then not having to cry every day after school, that resonated. That is the power of the story. All of you have a story to tell. I don't think that we have time, and I was hoping that we could have a few of you tell stories. I don't think we will, but if you sit here and you take a minute, every one of you has a founding story, or you have your personal career journey. You didn't just get here for the sake of it, right? You were either, maybe something personal happened. Maybe you're trying to right a wrong in society, make something more efficient, make something a better experience. And so I want you to be thinking about that personal story you have that got you here, that got your company here, as we're talking through some of these next steps and building your messaging that you take to market. To give you an overview of what I want to walk through, a little more, I think we've talked a lot about this power of storytelling, but I have a few other things to share. And then I'm actually going to take you through, and this is where you've got to do some work, 3 steps to create your best messaging today. I have a few do's and don'ts. Like I said, I've been doing this for a long time, so learn from my mistakes, don't repeat them. One thing I'll say is, I certainly want to have time at the end where you can ask questions, but as I'm going through things, if things come to mind, just either shout them out or raise your hand, whatever you're comfortable with. I've talked a lot about storytelling, and really when you think of messaging and kind of going back to that story of your company, messaging is just that. The messaging, or your company messaging, your brand story, that is an extension of the story, your personal story around starting your business. Again, I said, maybe right now what we can do is just take a second and write down 1 or 2 things about the story, about why you started your company. And just to confirm, everyone here is either running a company or a founder, correct? Well then, maybe I can just draw I apologize, I thought that we were, that was the audience. So maybe give me a little bit, or let's try it this way. Each of you are in a place in your career and you have a story with how you got here. Is anyone here launching products or launching services or taking things to market? So a few of you, well then some of this may resonate more with you, but regardless if it's something you're doing today or something that eventually you do, or even when you're going to get your next role, you're negotiating, the story that you're out there telling is powerful regardless. In fact, storytelling is something that we're probably all familiar with the Bible. Why was the Bible created? it's a bunch of stories to get people to buy into the religion. Now maybe that's a pessimistic view, but like it really is, right? These are stories that have shared, and there's derivatives of these stories to teach us all lessons and to teach children, how to act and whatnot. That isn't your cup of tea, if religion isn't your thing. Storytelling, they've done studies, and basically 55% of consumers who believe and buy into your story are actually more likely to make a purchase. So if you don't believe in the Bible, you may believe in money, right? And it's like money does the talking. I'm switching over to the slide with Elon Musk and Taylor Swift. Okay, well, even if you're not a fan of her music, there are hundreds of millions of people that are. And yes, Taylor Swift, I would argue, and most people would, is one of the best marketers out there. But why do we love her songs so much? They're stories. Those songs are stories. They're about her relationships, her feelings, her breakups, and everything, and the house that she bought in Newport, Rhode Island, and the history of it. And to bring it back to tech, Elon Musk, this is something, again, regardless of how you feel about him, he truly knows how to tell a story. And in fact, if you go out and you Google, he's got a very formulaic approach to how he pitches. And, he continues to set the bar out there, and he's got a almost cult following, around the Tesla and his vision for what he's doing. And, I always like to say there's lots of electric cars out there, and more than ever now, but the people who've really gravitated and built that community around Tesla, it's like they bought into his story and who he is. Sometimes, depending on your role, if you're not on the product side, if you're in more of maybe an engineering role or a finance role or anything in between, you may be thinking, I'm not a writer, storytelling isn't for me. But if you take away maybe the fluffiness or the softness of storytelling, or even if you're resisting the idea of it, think of the opposite, which is the untold story. And I like to think of the untold story and how it actually brings up a couple different challenges. And this is on either side of the transaction. So over the last few years, I started Arch Collective in 2019, and then you had 2020 and 2021 were boom years for investing. I mean, it was like you had an idea, you could probably get funding. And so it was so competitive out there. And then in 2022, you started to see a lot of that come back, and then certainly slow down in 23 as well. When you've got record amounts of startup companies getting funded, you got to break through the noise.